Hello everybody, it's me RJ here again with another video for you guys. Today we're going to be digging into the Bolens 20-inch cut push lawnmower. This has a Briggs & Stratton 450 series 125cc engine, and as you could see at the beginning of the video, it would not start. So we're going to go ahead and take the carburetor off and give it a good cleaning and go through it. Most likely that's the reason why it's not starting. So let's get into it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do to make it easier on ourselves so that we can get a better view of the carburetor and how it's removed is to take off this top piece. You're going to need an 8mm socket wrench to remove this, and you just remove 1, 2, 3 bolts. So we're going to go ahead and remove those right now. Okay, once you have all 3 of those bolts removed, you can just lift this top piece up. Comes off pretty easy. Don't worry about anything flying out on you, and just set it aside. The next thing we're going to do is remove the air cover filter and the air filter. So go ahead and pull up on this tab until the door comes open like this. And sometimes your air filter is going to be in here and it's not going to be in this part. Just pull it out and move it to the side. The next step, you're going to need an 8mm socket and a 7mm socket. There's 4 bolts we need to remove. One here, one underneath the primer bulb, and one here. The 2 on the outside here, take an 8mm. The 2 inside here, take a 7mm. So let's take that apart right now. Now that you have all the bolts loose, just go ahead and pull this straight towards you real slow. There's going to be a hose back here, right here, that's going to disconnect from this. Just give it a little twist and pull, and you can pull that off and set this to the side. The next step is to remove the gas hose right here. We're going to undo this clamp with a pair of pliers and pull this gas hose away from the carburetor. Now we're probably going to lose a little bit of gas. Sometimes you can take a pair of vice grips, be careful, you don't want to mess your hose up, and pinch the hose to stop the gas from pouring out, and then remove that clamp. Now I'm going to attempt to pull the gas hose off of the carburetor and try not to lose my gas. Once we got it off and we got it pinched so there's no gas coming out, if you want to, you can remove the gas tank, which I'm going to kind of get it out of my way. In order to do that, all you do now is just lift up on the gas tank itself and it will slide completely off like this. It sits in these little grooves right here. These pieces right here, they slide right down in between those. Now it's time to pull the carburetor out. There's a throttle linkage that runs right here and connects into the top of the carburetor through this little hole. So keep in mind that that's going to come with you as you pull the carburetor out. We're going to pull it out and then twist it to get it removed from that linkage. So just pull straight on it towards you. Then you're going to get it out so far and you're going to tilt it. Now you're going to lose gas out of the carburetor because it should be full of gas. So we're going to pull it out like that, and now we have the carburetor removed. I have my finger over this right here so I don't lose too much gas. I'm going to go ahead and dump that out somewhere in a pan. Now we're going to disassemble the carburetor and clean it. I'm going to turn it upside down. There's going to be 2 bolts, one here, And you're going to need the 7mm socket. Go ahead and loosen those. Once you have these two bolts removed, you can turn the carburetor and look right here. You can take a flathead screwdriver and pry just a little bit to try to get this separated. There's an O-ring that's holding this together, so sometimes it stays together pretty tight. You can get the flathead screwdriver in between this gap right here sometimes and pry, and it will pop up like this, just a little bit on this side, and then try to work the other side. Just be careful, you don't want to break anything. This entire thing is made out of plastic. Once you get it going, it should pop open. And once you pop it open, just lay this piece right here to the side. That's the bottom bowl. Okay, we're going to remove the float. There's a little pin right here that holds it in place. It snaps down into a little groove. You can take that pin and pull it out, or you can pop it right up. Just don't pry on the float itself. And once you have it popped out of that little track or groove that it fits in, you can pull this up right here. You can take that pin, set it aside so you don't lose it. Just remember where it goes. And underneath here is a needle. You don't want to lose that either. That fits into this little groove here. If it falls out, all you do is slide it back in. So we're going to take that and we're going to set it aside, and the float. Now we're going to remove this piece right here. This piece is a little tough to get out sometimes. It snaps down in this insert. If you can get something, your finger or something underneath this little piece right here, you can pull up on it. Sometimes you might have to take a flathead screwdriver and set it in like this. Just be very careful. Pry up on it. You don't want to break anything. Once you get it loose a little, you can pull it out with your hand. We're going to take this and set it aside. We're going to disassemble this piece too, because we want to make sure everything is clean in here. Okay, go ahead and turn the carburetor back over. This little piece here, you can pop it out, just wiggle it back and forth, and it will come out too, because we want to make sure there's no crud or any kind of dirt or anything in there. Just, I can't say it enough, be careful when you're pulling on these parts. You don't want to break them. So that came right out like that. We're going to set it. Okay, now we're going to disassemble this piece. So we're going to grab it here and here. We're just going to pull it apart and wiggle it until it starts to come apart. See, it's starting to separate now. We want to get this piece all the way off so that we can check all these little holes in here to make sure they're not plugged up. There's some really tiny holes here. There's about 3 of them. And there's some trash right there if you can see it on my finger. That was probably plugging it up some. I don't know if that would have prevented it to start, but that's still some dirt we want out of there. So now that we have all the carburetor parts disassembled, we'll go ahead and set them in a pan. You can put them in gas and clean them in gas. Some people don't like to use carburetor cleaner. I'm going to use carburetor cleaner in this video. We'll just set all the parts in here, and we're going to spray this whole thing down completely. And give it about 10-15 minutes to soak in here, and then we're going to blow it out with a can of compressed air and reassemble it. Okay, now it's time to grab your can of compressed air or compressor and blow everything up. Okay, now that everything is blown off and clean and nice and dry, it's time to reassemble. So go ahead and grab these 2 pieces first. We're going to slide them together. They fit back together just like this. You take this small piece here and this piece, push them back together. You're going to kind of twist it a little bit until you get it all the way back together. You want to make sure it's pressed in there nice and tight, that everything fits really close like it was when you first took it out of the carburetor. We're going to go ahead and place this piece back in the carburetor. It only goes one direction. If you have this fitting facing you, just keep it facing you and take this part with the little rubber O-ring right here facing away from you, and it fits down in there like this. That's the only way it can go in. Make sure you press it down nice and tight until it pops back into place. It's all the way down in there, nice and tight. Next, you can grab your float, the little needle, take the needle, slide it back in here so it sits like this. You can go ahead and take the pin, place it through here, and then this hole right here is where this needle is going to go. So you can set it down. You can see what I'm doing here. Make sure that needle doesn't fall off. Once it's down in place, make sure the pin pops down into the insert and doesn't come out. Sometimes you might need something to help press it down other than your fingers. So now that it's popped in place, everything looks good. Now we need to take this little piece here and place it in where you pulled it out of, right here. Just press and make sure it's popped in all the way around. It shouldn't come out. You should be able to hold it like that and it should not pop out. Then we're going to take this piece. Now you see this little groove on the inside of here, this indentation. Looks kind of like an L. It's facing that way. To my right would be your left. Make sure it faces the same way as this, so when you put this on, you want that L facing that way. See if I can kind of, okay, have it like this. That little fitting is pressing out that way. The L is facing that way also. You want to put it back on just like this. Otherwise, it won't work. If you put it on the opposite direction like this, it's not going to allow this to work properly. So now that we got everything facing the right direction, we just close this up. Make sure that O-ring doesn't get jammed or pinched anywhere or pop out on you while you're trying to press this back together, because you don't want this sucking any air. So we're just going to work around this until that O-ring is pressed back down in there and this whole piece is put back together. Now that you have the carburetor pressed back together, you can take your two bolts, put them back in, and remember these are the 7mm. Now it's time to reconnect the throttle linkage to the carburetor. You're going to put it through the hole just like you took it off, and then turn the carburetor straight. Make sure that the throttle linkage goes under this hose, and this fitting slides in this groove. Slide it back on the exact way you pulled it off. Make sure everything is pressed all the way back like that, and it stays right there. Now we can go ahead and put the gas tank back on. Those two grooves, that one and that one over there, they'll slide right down in between these little notches right here. Just slide it down. Make sure you press it down all the way so it sits down in place, all the way down until it won't press down anymore. It should sit down in there like that. Now it's time to reconnect our hose to the carburetor. So once you get that reconnected, you can go ahead and take your vice grips off and you should be okay. You shouldn't lose any gas at this point. Go ahead and remove them. Then you're going to take the pair of pliers, squeeze down on this clamp and bring it all the way to the front where the hose meets the fitting of the carburetor, and let it loose so that it tightens down nice and tight. And make sure you don't see any gas leaking out. We're good to go here, so it's on to the next step. Now we're going to take our air filter housing with the prime bulb and place it on. It's just going to go back on right here. Just make sure that this fitting goes into this hose right up top. And that was the purpose of taking the very top off, to make sure you get this inserted right, because if that hose is not connected on there, it's not going to run. So just take a look down there, make sure it's nice and tight on there, it's not moving. Everything looks good. Now we're going to take the two 8mm bolts. One goes on this outside here, and the other fits on right here. And then you have two more 7mm bolts. One goes under the primer bulb, one goes to the left of it. Now you can go ahead and put the cover back on. Make sure it's snapped in place. Now it's time to put the top back on. Just pull it towards you. Set it on here. And sometimes you got to pull the string just a little bit and it'll drop down to place. Once it's in the right position, it shouldn't come off even with the bolts removed. I'm going to go ahead and drop the bolts in there and tighten them back up. Now that we have everything cleaned and reassembled, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to start this lawnmower. And it might take a little bit to start right up because there might be a little bit of air in the gas line. Alright guys, it looks like we are successful. So if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. I tried to keep this as short as possible. If you have the Bolens 20-inch cut, or Bolens, however you pronounce that, 20-inch cut push lawnmower with the Briggs & Stratton 450E series 125cc, and it just will not start, follow the instructions in this video and you should be good to go. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and share if you know anybody having issues and they have this lawnmower. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.